Today, the church celebrates Christ, King of the universe. And every time this feast comes up, I can't help but to think of a traditional icon of Christ. It's called Christ Pan Creator. It's often done in the Russian style. It has Christ seated on a throne of judgment, this stern face, holding the world with a little cross on top. And to be honest, it's one of my favorite icons. Not because the icon itself is overly beautiful, overly detailed. The color palette is often somewhat dark. I mean, when compared to other Russian icons like the Rublev icon of the Trinity, which is beautiful underpainting, it's bleh. But I love the icon, not so much solely for the icon itself, but because of where I've seen it placed. The Russian cosmonauts have taken this icon, a print of it, and placed it on the International Space Station, right by the window that looks out on the world. And I love that image, that picture of astronauts and cosmonauts floating around in space, surrounded by man-made technology, looking out literally on the earth beneath them. And above the earth is an icon of Christ, creator and judge of all. I like it because I think sometimes in modern society we can become overconfident in our technology. It can lead us into an atheism of our own devices, where we make the things we've made our own gods. And yet, with the astronauts and the cosmonauts, we see their remembrance of God. People who have to have absolute faith in man-made technology. Because let's face it, when you're actually in outer space, if there's one little mistake, everybody dies. Technology has to be perfect for them. And it hasn't led many of them to forget about God. It's caused many of them to remember that they need God, that God is maker of all. Yes, we can do amazing things with our own technology, but we are not God. God will come, God will judge, and God will judge us as we have treated those around us. I recently did a class with my seniors looking at the new encyclical put out by Pope Francis. And the way I described it to the boys was that in many ways the encyclical dealt with what I was calling, as other theologians have called, Catholic socialism. I made it clear to the boys we can't confuse Catholic socialism with Marxist or communist socialism, because the orders are very different. In the Marxist method, work gives value to man. Whereas in the Catholic model, work has value because it comes from man. Man, made in the image and likeness of God, gives worth to what we touch, to what we do. But with that comes the idea that we have this responsibility, especially those with more, to care for those who have less. We see that explicit in our gospel today. The call to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to minister to those who need ministered. The corporal works of mercy, the works that deal with the flesh, the corpus, the body. And we can't forget this. We need to remember it. Now, yes, as if you read that encyclical, there are many elements the Holy Father goes into. For example, as he points out the need for nations that are accepting or have immigrants coming to them to be welcoming and caring for the immigrants, but also for those emigrating, those leaving, not to do so unless there's no other option. To look to protect, to build, to maintain, to correct the society they find themselves in. The encyclical goes further to say that those countries that receive those emigrating, those becoming the immigrants, must look into trying to fix the root cause of that emigration. Basically answering the classic question, am I my brother's keeper? Some Jewish rabbis in the time of Christ, but even through today, have said that all of Scripture is written to answer the question of Cain. When Cain kills Abel, as seen on my chalice, well, actually, it's their sacrifice that's depicted on my chalice that will lead to the murder. But when Cain kills Abel and hides the body, the Lord who knows all gives Cain a chance to be honest. He says to him, "Where's your brother?" And Cain's defiant response is, "Am I my brother's keeper? Am I responsible for him?" Well, many rabbis, as well as many fathers of the church, have gone to say that all of Scripture is God's reply. And it is a reply in the affirmative. We are our brother's keeper. We are called to look after each other, both in the physical and the corporal needs of mercy, as we have heard today, to help those who need help, to feed those who are hungry, to clothe those who are naked, but also in the spiritual sense, to correct those who need corrected, to love those who need loved, to reach out to those who need to hear those kind words. As we prepare to celebrate Thanksgiving, as we prepare to gather with our families, maybe, I honestly don't know how or what most people are going to do, given the new rules that seem to be changing day by day, city by city. But if you plan to meet with your families, even if it's just through Zoom or Skype or a phone call, I encourage you to remember the elements today. The need to look after your brother, to be that kind word, to see Christ in them, in their needs, in their weaknesses, but also your need to be Christ to them, to offer them love and support, not only in physical things, but also in spiritual things, to maybe try and encourage a brother or a sister or a sibling to come back to church, or at least to catch us online. It's not lie, we want that like count to be up. But to look after one another, to love one another. For as we know, Christ, the judge of all, will one day come to separate the sheep from the goats, and to remind us all that yes, indeed, we are our brother's keeper.